All right, we're live. All right, how far can you take it? You guys know me. I am Jack Mangan of Metal Asylum, Metal Hall of Fame, and the Am I Evil graphic novel, which we're still banging away at. The artist is still doing his thing. We're talking Jersey tonight. I'm actually not representing a metal shirt. I've got Jersey in another way, representing the Devils. All right, my partner in crime over there with the DO shirt on. How you doing,
Yeah,
Rich?
I figured I'd wear that since Holy Diver had an anniversary today, I think it was. So
Nice.
dug out the DO shirt. Rich from Metal Asylum and Brave Words Magazine and Sea of Tranquility once in a while. And today we're joined by Mr. Bobby Ellsworth from Overkill, a longtime Jersey band, here to talk to us about coming up in New Jersey, for all these decades now. And, his experiences on the club scene and Overkill and everything else.
You there?
Yeah. Yeah, you just broke up for a second there.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. I lost you on these new little buds I had. Yeah,
You just froze
good
up,
to be back.
actually. Okay.
It's been good to be back. It was last November, October we talked.
Yeah.
Somewhere left. Yeah.
6-7 months. Yeah.
Yeah, it was for the Am I Evil graphic novel. We had some people
That's
on,
right.
saying hello and supporting it and everything. So it was cool for you to join us. Welcome back.
Yeah, Jack. I remember Jack Frost was on, and you had that artist, that really cool artist who did, a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I looked up all the stuff after that. It was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. Cheyenne
Nice.
Wright. Yeah, super talented artist. Great guy.
That's it. Yep.
Cool.
All right, cool. Well, Rich, why don't you start off with some questions? I was going to share this thing around.
Okay, I'll give you the first question then. So Overkill's been around for a long time, and people don't know. You guys have been around since actually like 82, right? Around there?
Actually, a little before that. As a cover band, primarily a cover band at first, an original here or there. So probably late 80. Yeah.
Okay.
1980.
How long you guys a cover band? You guys were always a Jersey band, correct? All the guys were from Jersey, and you guys were playing the Jersey scene at that time as Overkill?
I actually grew up in Rockland County, New York. I mean, I originally a Jersey guy, born in Jersey, Bayonne, Jersey City, kind of a thing. My father took us up to Rockland County in New York, and I met the first guitar player in a community college I was in called RCC, Rockland Community College. And we eventually ran into Dee Dee Verney and Rat Skates through what was the Aquarian, or the East Coast Rocker. It was the social media of the day. They had a musicians classified in the back, and a lot of that you just tried to match up adjectives, and I think our adjectives were leather, steel, over the top, and their adjectives were steel, leather, heavy metal, right, punk. Mm-hmm. And we're like, wow, a bassist and a drummer, and we were guitar player and a singer. So that was our contact, and it was primarily a cover band. But as I remember it, we still delved into writing our own stuff, right away. Trying to come up with our own stuff that was primarily based on the Judas Priest, the Iron Maiden, the Riot that we were playing at that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Okay. Jack, go ahead.
Well, crap. Go ahead. I'm still sharing this around. So go ahead, Rich.
So at that time, when did the theatrics and the makeup and the clothes and the stage with the gates that would open up under the drum riser come into the picture? Is that after the cover band when Overkill started making original songs?
That's for sure. That was Bobby Gustafson era, when Bobby had joined the band. I really think that the theatrics came more so from Rat and Dee Dee, but Bobby and myself bought into it.
You're still
because it was just
okay. Jack, is he freezing up on you?
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit, Bobby.
Yeah. He's frozen.
All right. Yeah. So we got Yeah, you're frozen up, Bobby. I don't know if you can hear us, but
Yeah. Do we have to let him re-enter?
there
Oh,
you
yeah,
are.
There you go.
Okay.
Was that my Wi-Fi or is that you guys?
Might be yours, but you're good now.
Yeah, you're good now. Yeah.
Okay, I went after one of those like real high. I don't know. I think for a house with like one person, and I got like a 40 Mbps, so I could stream all the Devils games.
Nice.
Yeah, but we were back to the question. We were theatrics, but I attribute it primarily to Dee Dee and Rat Skates because they always had those type of presentation type ideas, production ideas.
Mm-hmm. So that at the time when you guys were playing, that lasted. What was the years before? This was before Field of Fire came out. So how long was that period then? In Jersey.
Geez, I guess. Bobby joined in like '83. There was other members in there prior. Mm-hmm. Danny Spitz from Anthrax was one of the guitar players for a while, but we were still, cover / a few originals back then. I think even when Bobby came in, we were doing some covers at the beginning, but then we decided that this was never going to be the way to go. We'd get a gig here or there, maybe somewhere out in Staten Island, a place in Jersey. The show place in Dover. I don't know if you guys remember. That's off Route 10 down in Dover. I mean, it's like a strip joint during the day. It was a music venue at night type of thing. You come in at 5 o'clock and set it up. There'd be a bunch of girls dancing on the stage over by the bar. Nobody got any work done. It was more like.
How'd you guys lose money at this gig? Like, you guys get paid? I get it.
Yeah, right. We'd like to be paid in singles, please.
Okay, Jack.
Well, I was going to ask along those lines. You just mentioned that place. What were some of the venues that you played, especially in the early days? The venues and some of the bands that you kind of came up with in this scene, in the Jersey scene.
Well, in the Jersey scene, I mean, we were split between Staten. I mean, by this point, by '87 or '86, I was living back in Jersey full time, and I've been since. So we were rehearsing sometimes in Jersey, sometimes in Staten Island. We were getting gigs in Staten Island, right over the Gothels, a place called Snoopy's, October's. And they'd become, Jersey had primarily had cover clubs. There was a place called the Soap Factory over in Palisade Park or Palisade somewhere, and over in that direction. There was a Hole in the Wall. There was Mothers in Wayne, New Jersey. Even the ones out in Long Island they were cover band venues. But there was the Dirt Club here in Jersey. That's somewhere up in, I think it's up in Bergen or Essex County. I'm not 100% sure where. And the guy who ran the place was called Johnny Dirt, and this was kind of a punk rock place. Or we got into Gildersleeves and, down on the Bowery. This place, a show place in Dover. We played the Fox Theater in Hackensack with that big, huge stage set we had done, and this was primarily originals at this point. We had this, we had pin spotlights and strobes and fog machines and colored lights and, our big castle we put up on a stage. I think we probably played to, geez, if it was 75 people, I bet it was a lot, in a 1,500 seat theater. But I mean, it was, it was the beginning of something, which was kind of cool.
Cool. All right. And what about, other bands that you recall from the scene and back in the day that you came up with that maybe didn't go anywhere and should have, or maybe some of the ones that did hit the big time a little bit?
Well, yeah, there was oh God, what was that band with John Saltarelli? You remember John Saltarelli, Rich? He was in, it was like a hardcore punk band. It kind of, it'll come to me while we're talking. And then there was the guys in Whiplash we knew, or we knew a bunch of the guys over, as time progressed, we knew a bunch of the guys over that came out of the New York area too. We were primarily the Jersey band that was getting a little bit of legs from this scene, not just in general, but from this scene, or that thrash scene, or this newer metal scene, or newer metal for that day, we were the one getting legs. And where we wanted to go, was out of Jersey. We wanted to go to, Lemoore and Brooklyn. That was like, that was like the East Coast Mecca. You could get in there and be an opening band twice a month. You were going to get, you're going to spread your wings, from that point on. So the Jersey scene was somewhere that I think that we learned our craft, but the place that we applied it to and extended it was Brooklyn, New York, and Lemoore's itself.
And when did Lemoore start? When did you guys start playing there? When did that open up and that started happening?
Well, I mean, we weren't signed, obviously, so I guess it was late '83.
Okay.
After Bobby had joined the band, and but we'd hang out there. I mean, we got to know the guys, and I love telling the story because we all took turns. It was about repetition, and they had Lemoore in Brooklyn, they had Lemoore East and Queens. And we'd make up these press packages, and the press package would have an 8x10. It would have, a demo that we had done, the Power and Black demo. It would have a bio on us, blah, blah, blah. It was as professional as we could make it at that point. And we'd all take turns hitting up the owners, and we got to know who the owners were. And there were two brothers and this one other guy who I still hang out with, Frank. And I actually even talked to one of the brothers, still Parente boys. And I was in Queens, and it was my turn, and it was George Parente. I saw him walk into the club, and I had my press package. I walked up to him. I guess I'm probably, I'm 22 or something at the time. I walked up to him at 23. I'm like, hello, Mr. Parente and Bobby Blitz from Overkill. I'd just like you to have one of the band's press packages and consider us for future dates. As pro as I can. He turns around and he goes, hey, you're a nice kid, but your band sucks. I have 40 of your press packages in my office. But somewhere out of that tenacity came, we got a gig. And it was, I remember how it happened. It was a Canadian band called Exciter was coming down. It was 83, heavy metal maniac with the knife.
Yeah.
And
and
it was this huge snowstorm, and we got a call. One of us got a call. It's like, okay, the club's open, the band can't make it. If you get here, it's yours, but you have an hour. And that was and we never left that club until it closed. From that point on, we were like, we'll be there.
Yeah.
Put the castle in the truck.
How many times do you think you played that, Lemoore's? How many times do you think you guys have been there?
Somebody gave me a count the other day. Yeah, I think it was something like 35 times. We were there a lot. We were the house band for a while. I think there was a place we played in Jersey we might have done pretty close to that, a place called the Union Jack in South River, like where we learned our trade as opposed to, applying our trade kind of a thing,
Okay.
We and that reminds me, I guess I am name dropping a little bit. We had Maria Ferrero on a couple of weeks back from Megaforce. Now, they're a huge part of the Jersey and the thrash scene growing up, like the same time you guys were. So talk to us a little bit about what a big deal the Old Bridge Militia and Megaforce and all that was for you guys and for the whole scene when you were coming out.
And then if you can, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you can connect it to, because that led from Megaforce going to Atlantic, correct? For Under the Influence, right? Is that the transition, Under the Influence? It
was actually it was the second record taking over, got distribution from Atlantic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
it was actually before that.
Crossover. Okay.
Well, it was what John and Marsha had done was they had started at a flea market on a place called the Route 18 Flea Market, and they had a booth there where they brought in, the new wave of British heavy metal stuff. Some of the Canadian stuff. They had Raven and Anvil, and I think that's where we bought our Venom vinyl was down at Route 18. And it was it attracted. I don't know. The unattractive, I suppose. That group of us that became, extreme heavy metal guys and girls. From that, the stuff that didn't suit us. That kind of, regular. I mean, I still love rock and roll, but I was kind of like put off by some of the metal that had been, I liked the new wave of British heavy metal and that stuff, and I couldn't get my hands on it. So, but the American stuff was kind of used to drive me crazy from that era. It just didn't say anything to me. I liked the punk rock more of that era or pre that era. So that's what I mean by the unattractable. It wasn't like we were this, but we were a group. And you'd see a lot of the same people down at the Route 18 flea market, and they were guys or girls that later became part of Megaforce or were part of the Old Bridge Metal Militia in New Jersey. And, you started feeling this community kind of, starting to breathe on its own. It wasn't individuals anymore. It was more of a group. And somewhere within that, you kind of felt that there was something was happening. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like you wished
it builded like the support. It builded the support for it.
It was support, but you felt it. It was like, oh my God, it's coming true. Because I mean, if you were putting your heart and soul into, a Raven record, or Welcome to Hell or something by Venom, or whatever your thing was at that time, it was like, it was the best thing since canned beer and sliced bread. But now it was coming to life. The early King Diamond stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, everything was starting to breathe, and I think that. When Megaforce took the step to a brick and mortar shop and then brought Metallica to the area and then signed them, signed Metallica to their first deal at Megaforce. I mean, it started a movement. I mean, that's as simple as it is. That's where that movement really started. There may be bands that predate them. There may be bands that that were as deserving at that time. But that's where the movement started, with the stroke of that pen. And I think that everybody, from this Jersey area anyway, Jersey, even New York, tri-state area, saw it to be real from that point on.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. Go ahead, Rich.
And then, like I said, how does it change over by the second album into Atlantic? How do you get into the Atlantic era then?
Well, we used to hang out Rock and Roll Heaven. It went from the Rock and Roll Heaven at the flea market on Route 18, South River area, to Clark, New Jersey, to a place called Rock and Roll Heaven, which was a brick and mortar shop. And they started selling, that's where I saw the first Destruction record and, Creator record, stuff like this. Stuff that was coming in from Germany, not just the English stuff. And Johnny had signed Metallica, so, everybody was trying to knock on Johnny's door, I mean, I think he was managing Anthrax by this time. He'd signed Metallica, and we were selling our demos out of his place, and very much like the L'Amour thing, it was just like, oh, that's nice. But then eventually we pressed our own EP, just called Overkill, and it sold out of his store. Just kept, because we were that house band at L'Amour, and that L'Amour wasn't just full of people from Brooklyn; it was full of Jersey kids too. So, all the Jersey kids bought up our EP, and Johnny couldn't help but notice that. And Marcia always loved us. Marcia Zazula always wanted to sign us. So that was our big break. I mean, we signed a deal somewhere in, it was the summer of '84. I remember I was working down in Manhattan I was working out of the back of the Museum of Modern Art. I was running a loading dock down there. Some girl I knew got me a job down there, and I walked over to Madison Avenue with a beer in a bag and went up to the 50th floor and signed a record contract. John Zazula, I was out of my mind, So, from there, that was a Field of Fire. Field of Fire followed that, but that was released in '85. But by '87, when we released Taking Over, or late '86, it was Atlantic Records that was doing the distribution for Megaforce. So it was obvious that they were becoming a big player, and that this movement that we had felt all the way back at that Route 18 flea market was a valid movement.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Great.
And all right, I promise I'm not just giving you empty flattery here, Blitz, but that album, I feel like that was such a nuclear bomb that went off that year, between Master of Puppets and Rain and Blood, but I felt like Taking Over was right there with it. And I guess this is leading to my question, like, what do you feel like not just for Jersey, but just for Thrash. I feel like that was the year where basically everything changed. Where you guys, no pun intended, you guys kind of took over.
Jack, they had a video too for In Union We Stand also, which was helpful too. I remember seeing that.
I remember that video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Made us instant rock stars.
Was that and talking about Jersey? Was that shot in Jersey?
My father used to say to me, "Are you sure this is not about girls and free beer?"
But yeah, of course it is.
It was shot in Manhattan at a place called The World, and it was an old theater. It's somewhere downtown. I'm assuming the Lower East Side. That it was kind of a seedier place, but it was it was a place called The World. Are you talking Hello from the Gutter, or are you talking?
In Union We Stand. That was on. Yeah, because Jack was
in Union We
about
Stand was shot. In Union We Stand was in. My mistake. I'm parallels here. Union We Stand was shot in Jersey. I just can't remember the theater though. I just can't. Somewhere not too far south though. Had to be up in again Essex or Hudson County.
Cool.
All right. Well, I mean, since we're talking about this stuff, what about WSOU? So what a big role did they play in influencing you guys, and of course in helping to spread the word? I think that's the first place I heard you guys was WSOU.
Yeah, they played you guys.
I mean, we were kind of their local, fan favorites kind of a thing. I mean, sure, Metallica was huge, and Slayer was, on their heels, and Megadeth came into play, and Anthrax. They were those big four guys. I mean, they were obviously ahead of us, but we were kind of, fan local favorites when it came to that. Most of the people who were listening to us knew us. I mean, I saw you. When did I see you? Back in the 90s somewhere? You were walking around Davey's studio. I'm like, who's this fuck? Who's this guy?
Early 90s. Yeah, like early. Somewhere around, I want to say WFO, I Hear Black, maybe somewhere around there.
Yeah, you came and visited Tim or something, right? Didn't you
What's
visit
that?
Tim? Didn't you visit Tim Mallory? Or?
I think I just met you guys at that period, that era.
Okay. I was like, somebody send this kid out for beer. Does he have money? Send him out for beer and pizza.
Is he old enough? Actually, Rich brought Tim Mallory to see us. Rich and I were in a band. We played at the Crossroads in Garwood. It wasn't a metal band even. We were in a band with a friend, Matt Mango. It was just doing like U2 kind of stuff. But yeah, so there's a little back and forth. Yeah, Tim. And actually, we played some Overkill riffs. So there you go.
Oh, that's killer. I'll tell you what's funny. I played isn't the Crossroads that bar right down from Lisa G's? And
it's
there's like
Crossroads is in Garwood. It's in between Cranford. It's right by Cranford, right next to Cranford.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's right, but it's right. It's Route 20. What 21? Not 21.
Route 28. Come on, you guys. I haven't lived there in 10 years. You should know this more than me. Isn't it Route 28? Westfield Avenue. 28.
Do you know where there was the ice cream shop there? There was an ice cream shop down from the Crossroads, probably about half a mile. Because the Crossroads was right next to McDonald's, right?
Yes, that's right down the block.
Right. Yeah, so down the block, about 150 yards, on the same side of the street is a place called Lisa G's. It's a bar, right? It's just a corner bar. And right directly across from that is what's called the Nipple Works. And that door, we rehearsed in that room. We wrote Taking Over in there, Under the Influence in there. We grabbed that place right after Feel the Fire. And so we did a lot of stuff, and we had like a little apartment set up in there. So we were always down there on weekends. We had I would sleep there. It had like a hot plate and a refrigerator and a shower and everything. But
so
it was only, it was only.
That was your rehearsal place for many years?
3 records, yeah. So I guess 5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, that was in the Nipple Works building? Because I'm 8 years old, so of course I remember the Nipple Works place. It was next to Pathmark. Of course I remember Nipple Works.
Anybody 8 years old remembers the word nipple.
Exactly. So you guys were in that building, or you were like around the vicinity of it?
In there, right there.
Okay.
Right there. There's a great door. You could walk right out our door to that bar. The front door of that bar. It was a great door there, and that's where it's a little parking lot. Like if you're looking at the building, little parking lot to the left, first door on the Nipple Works. That was it was the old pay office. It was a place that was rented to Dee Dee and his boss at that time, and he moved the business, so we took it as soon as the guy moved it because it had all these extra amenities that we could. It had the right amount of electricity. It had a living room. It had a full bathroom and a shower. We're like, this is perfect. So
this is awesome. I'm learning stuff I never knew before. This is cool. All right, Rich, I got questions, but go ahead if you got something lined up.
Okay, when you guys were playing the East Coast at this time, was it mostly the East Coast, or did you guys start branching out outside of the East Coast? Or are you still central, around Jersey, New York, and all that? Did you go north, south?
Well, you're talking 87 or pre-signed?
Around, I guess, we're going into like taking over Under the Influence now. So I guess around that, that period, you started going other places then?
Yeah, back to Feel the Fire, we did a thing called U.S. Speed Metal Attack with Anthrax and Agent Steel over in Europe. It was probably a 3+ week period tour. We did primarily Western Europe. I think we started in Munich. I remember playing Belgium, Netherlands, no UK shows, a lot of German shows, probably a Swiss show or two, maybe touched Italy. So that was April of 86. But when we were taking over, we got offered the Slayer tour prior to the release. So we finished the record, drove out to Seattle, and then toured with Slayer all the way back to the US. So even as, with Feel the Fire, we had decent tours. We had an agent, I mean, it was, I guess it wasn't William Morris. It'll come to me. It's too much stuff in here. But by taking over, the first tour we did was European, 87 March. I think it was a 5-week tour with Helloween on Keeper of the Seven Keys. The big one, part 2, that is? Keeper of the Seven Keys, part 2. I'm Alive.
Keeper part 1 was 87, and then part 2 was 88.
Then it had to be part 1. Okay. So we did Helloween for about 5 weeks, and as soon as we got home, somewhere in early May, a few weeks later, we went out with Megadeth. Just hit the road with Megadeth, and did the whole U.S. Did from I remember playing Long Beach, California, and Salt Lake City, Utah, and Seattle, and also playing Philadelphia, New York, and gigs in Florida. So it was it was a full coverage kind of a thing. So you add MTV, like we talked about the video, to that kind of physical touring coverage. I mean, we were making some dents in recognition for ourselves.
Nice,
cool.
All right,
shit, I lost it. All right, so I was going to ask, we'll move forward. We can come back to the 80s a little bit, but I want to move forward a little bit. For me as a fan, it always felt like you guys later in your careers when you really started to embrace the Jersey part of your heritage and your culture. Like it started coming through in the lyrics. Like Ironbound for me, that was a great place where, and actually if you watch out there, if you're not from Jersey, Ironbound for me, I know that is a section of Newark. But can you tell me, what am I getting around to? My question for you, Blitz, is can you tell me about what do you feel like Overkill was always all about the Jersey? You feel like it has kind of crept into it more as your careers progressed?
I think it actually crept in more so as our careers progressed. I think that's probably a pretty good observation because I think, Rich has known us, like you said, since the 90s. I mean, we're pretty easy guys to get along with. We're not, we're primarily, we think in terms of family. We treat each other. We think we're in a gang kind of a thing. What the AC/DC lyrics, I'm in a band, I'm in a gang, that kind of a mentality. Right. And I think there was always something really special about New Jersey. And, we had now been rehearsing there, in the 90s, making records there, Dee Studio. We were, thinking locally, but acting globally. Which was kind of cool to be able to bring something along that, reminded you of home. And even if that was just your attitude or that kind of stuff. And I think it just kind of worked for us and just kind of, became something that, we said was ours, that we're a part of this thing. I mean, the Ironbound record, I think, says that. I mean, as it's as it's a piece. I go to the Ironbound, during hockey season a lot, to see the Devils. I mean, it's one of my favorite places to go is the Prus Center. But I think that we became more aware of our, let's say, Jersey heritage or beginnings.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you guys were never the Bon Jovi or Bruce Springsteen, who are always waving that Jersey flag. But yeah, I think it definitely welcome to the Garden State, of course, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well,
how many?
Yeah, and different way of looking at it. I mean, Ironbound it's because that part of Newark. I mean, that's the Portuguese section of Newark, and they say that from somebody gave it that name because they said when you see it from the air in a helicopter or an old prop plane, it looks as if it was tied to the earth by iron ribbons from the train tracks that came out of the ports. That's fed and supplied a big part of the country because of all those ribbons of iron in there. So it was bound to the earth by iron. And I always thought that was one of the coolest things when you think that that definition of what that neighborhood or that area is about. That's as metal as it gets.
Yeah, that's a cool story. Yeah.
You mentioned recording albums in New Jersey for Overkill. So how many records have you guys recorded in New Jersey? Because probably a lot of people don't realize you did a bunch there and still do.
Yeah. I mean, recording is a different thing. We used to all just go down to Dee Dee's studio and do it. And with COVID, it's a little bit weird. I mean, are we in a pandemic anymore? I mean, can somebody tell me? I mean, they keep telling me on the news I'm not in a pandemic, and then as soon as I put my mask down, somebody's giving me the shame finger, and I'm giving them the shame finger. But we did a bunch of records in the 90s down there. I mean, I guess like from the Killing Kind, we went to Connecticut for the Underground. Necroshire in Connecticut, a bunch of stuff in the 2000s we did there. Bloodletting, Killbox we did there. Immortalis, Relics, that kind of whole section. So probably 5-6 records and a bunch of demos, obviously. I mean, we demoed there. We worked in Connecticut, a place called the Carriage House, another studio up there. We worked in Ithaca at a place called Pyramid Sound. But these days it's primarily we would use Dee Dee's stuff and Dave's stuff and try to get everybody together. They usually sit there and do the tracking together, and then they separate, and then they come back together again and then put the finishing touches on it. And then I usually record somewhere in Rockland County by my mom's house so that I could stop over for dinner on the way home.
That's metal. Well, actually, so can you tell us a little bit? Has this presented any problems for recording the album that you have in the works right now? Like, what have these challenges been with the pandemic and all that?
Well, I think you obviously have to reinvent yourself. I mean, you don't give up by it. Say, hey, I can't do it because this is the way we normally do it. There's a little bit more separation. Travel's finally opened up again, but it's we're beyond that point in the record. We're coming close to saying, okay, all right, the guitars are done. We just kept breaking on it, saying we don't want to release it and not be able to tour. It has to, and it can't be a release in 2021 October if we're not touring till May 2022. We don't want to make it this forgotten entity. So we've kind of planned it for a release in February 22. Where we have a U.S. tour booked, or at least, have holds on venues everywhere. So I suppose the challenges have been just to not have any one-on-one time with the other dudes, no pizza and beer time after the session or after a rehearsal, after a demo, let's go get a pizza and beer. So I'm getting a hotel, I'm staying down here tonight. Let's go out or something. That kind of stuff. And that's the kind of stuff to me that makes great records, because you're bullshitting about stuff that's just coming off the top of your head in normal conversation. And I think that's where you start taking different directions. And people may have criticized this band. Oh, their first record's just like their last record. And I never believe that, because, I've seen all the nuances from the inside and the changes. And, Dave Linsk has taken a greater role within the writing or within the direction of the record because of his musical ability and his guitar playing abilities. And those normal little conversations. Like I was out on the road with Dave when we were doing the grinding wheel. I think Dave and I finished 6 songs. I just sitting around, him playing the guitar and me just talking to him. And that's what I missed the most during this Peter pandemic that we're in.
Cool. All right, go ahead, Rich.
All right, so during the 90s, the music changed and metal wasn't as popular. You guys were still playing the East Coast. I remember seeing you guys for probably all the albums from the 90s and tours, and especially at the Birch Hill nightclub many, many times. So what was your perspective at that time playing in the 90s, doing shows? How different was it from the 80s? Was it still beneficial to do it? Those type of things.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think that when you look how, it was crunched. We weren't only playing the East Coast. We had a decent following for, a minimum of half the country. We were for sure playing out to the Mississippi and still dipping our toe into Minneapolis and, getting over that line here and there. And I think you have to realize that as much as it looked like, these guys aren't making it to California, there isn't a hell of a lot between the Mississippi and California. There just isn't. There's cities and they're worth going to. I'm not saying that. There's Colorado, but going from Colorado to Salt Lake City is not like going from New York to Philadelphia. You're talking huge amounts of distance between these cities. So it wasn't that debilitating financially for us. And you also have to look at the fact that we were one of the only ones actually doing this shit at this time. There was a whole bunch of these guys. A whole bunch of these guys went home, and started living in their parents' basement, wondering why nobody, recognizes their.
I was going to say, you guys recorded a live album, during the 90s.
That's right. We did that in Cleveland and in Detroit. But it was good for us, and we never missed at least 2 trips a year during that time. We never missed the festival season. We were still going, occasionally to Asia. We were still going occasionally to South America, just like we are right now. Really no different. The only part of the world that had become less for us was probably Canada and the West Coast. But in retrospect, it's just reinventing the whole idea. I think that it's just like saying, hey, we just got to find a way to get through this. Were the guarantees less? A little bit less because you were playing smaller clubs, et cetera. But for us, it kind of worked. And I think that when, this was poised to make, I'm not going to say a comeback, but to reassert itself with regard to what its power and value and originality was to a younger, newer generation, for instance, the 8-year-old nipple guy over here, that the idea is that we were ready. Because, we were tuned up. We didn't have to go sit around in some rehearsal hall and say, hey, listen, somebody gave us an offer. We should, learn some stuff and write some stuff. We had been touring. It was no big deal for us. We just were like, boy, all of a sudden the scene became healthy. And before we knew it, that Ironbound record was out. And, people accepted it on for us on a very large level. So it was a real successful, let's say, walk through the 90s and 2000s to get to that reassertion of metal.
So Ironbound was around that time, was the change that you saw it getting better? That was what, 2010, I think? It
was 10.
Ironbound?
Yeah, 10. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could see it getting better. You could just see that the demographic of the crowds, first of all, the crowds were bigger. You were playing bigger rooms. Second of all, there was a spread. It wasn't just, the old metal guys with my gray hair and the Feel the Fire shirt that's as gray as their hair now because they bought it back in the 80s. There's kids wearing the uniform. They're out there. They're wearing the skinny Metallica jeans and the white high tops, and they have on a denim jacket with Merciful Fate patches on them, Motorhead patches. And they're 19, 20 years old. that's. You say, wait a second, somebody's paying attention to the stuff that we kind of grew up with and in, so that I think that really that was the health of it. That there was a younger generation. The older generation always knew its value. The younger generation said, "Hey, you know something? You got something here. This is cool to be able to still get a chance to experience this stuff at a high level live."
Yeah. And then you had the younger generation bands too that were coming out that were touring with like you guys as openers, which also helped.
Warbringer, Bonded by Blood.
Mm-hmm.
The Warbringer guys, man, it was just like I was like, "Yeah, you got your uniform?" I said, "You should have called me before." I said, "My whole attic's full of the stuff you guys wear. Got all those sneakers." Could have hooked you all up. The skinny leather jackets and denim vests.
When did you start seeing those bands talk about New Jersey and the East Coast? When did you start seeing them start coming over and playing? Do you remember?
Yeah,
Was it around the time of Ironbound or maybe a little before that?
What, like Warbringers and Evil?
The next generation. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
when people yeah.
Back then, in 2010, they were kind of, they would hitch their wagon to someone like us,
Mm-hmm.
Who had, or Exodus, or another band that was out there touring. I mean, we liked touring with the new bands because they had a buzz and they brought in, younger kids to be able to see the show. We figured that adding more of that demographic only helps the show. That they were actually worth tickets. They weren't worth tons of tickets, but they were worth committed, real metalhead.
Yeah.
I'm in for life kind of tickets. So I mean, I haven't seen. When did I start seeing them coming around by their own? Probably not until recently. I mean, I don't think Bonded by Blood's even together anymore. Warbringer is. Evile's gotten back together, I heard. They were one of my favorites to tour with was Evile. We took them on a couple of European tours. I thought that they had something that was just special, that they were going to be able to just take that next step, kind of a thing, Who else did I like? Oh, I always got along with those Irish kids, Gamma Bomb. I always like those guys from
I think they're still
the Irish
around.
kids.
Yeah.
The singer Philip used to go, "I hope you like to taste the hospital food, you old man."
Well, can you do a little bit of that? Just talk to us a little bit about comparing crowds from Europe and South America, maybe, and around the world, and Jersey and the other states. Like, what do you see out there that's a little different?
Well, I mean, sure, there's differences, but I think they're minute once you get, to, you peel away the layers of the onion, you get to the energy in the center. It's really, it's the same. I mean, but, sometimes you see, I think probably, I mean, I love playing Germany, but we play Germany so many times that when you play South America and you compare it to Germany, we don't play South America very often. So it becomes a more rare experience for, someone in Santiago, Chile, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So, as opposed to, Cologne, Germany. So I think in Santiago, for some reason, it's, they're walking on their hands and doing backflips and stuff. Doesn't mean the energy's any less in Germany, but I think it's different. Because, for instance, in Cologne, they have the opportunity to see a lot of bands, whereas in Santiago, they don't. That's the thing I notice the most. I don't notice that a South American audience is different than a German audience, or a Japanese audience is different than an American audience, because, it's really a universal language. Once it starts moving, I mean, it's what it's all about. But Jersey crowds for us, and I think probably, as Rich brought up or asked me earlier, that we've endeared ourselves to it at a higher level, after a certain amount of time, or grew into that. It's picked up by those, by that Jersey audience, and it's always a really off the hook type feeling. It's kind of like some kind of a psychotic family reunion, where people are flipping over the top of things. I mean, it's crazy. And I see
it's
some of the
it's your hometown, yeah, it's your home.
Right, I've seen these faces forever. It's the only crowd I can come out and say to, say, "Jesus, you get uglier every year. I can't see you, but I can smell you." I'll say that in other places too, but it doesn't get the response it gets in Jersey. Not a chance.
I said this last time we talked, but yeah, I saw you guys when you were out here at the Marquee Theater in the Phoenix area. And then, yeah, I remember, I loved that you brought the jersey that you were all talked about. You said, hey, we're your fucked up cousins from Jersey out here in Phoenix. So I thought it's awesome that you guys bring that around the rest of the country. So that's not even a question. It's cool you guys do that.
Since talking about playing, since things are getting better, opening up and things, do you think you guys might do something later in the year, maybe in Jersey, just a show, if it's possible?
Yeah, we got something on the hook right now. We have to pull the trigger on it by tomorrow, or it's not going to happen. So we're gonna just talk about it in the morning, and it will be a Jersey show. It'll actually be a makeup show, if that makes it any easier to understand there. So it's
cool.
Yeah. So we put together openers, and we put a date. We put a hold on a date in November, and we're either going to pull the trigger on it tomorrow or not. I just want it to be open to obviously everybody who has a ticket at this point, and we'd obviously like a few more tickets sold. But but I mean, it looks really hopeful, and that would be a good place to come back, and say, hey, let's get this rolling again. Let's get this machine oiled up and get it rolling. So,
and if it works out, you think you would think about the rest of the year, maybe a couple other things, or what would happen for the following year for 22 when the album comes out?
Well, I mean, 22 is pretty much set. We think by then, I mean, we'll even all have at least the ability or opportunity to have any kind of boosters that's going to hit any of these variants that come in here. That stuff that's going on in India right now, and there was something in the UK, 6 weeks ago, et cetera, et cetera. But there is other stuff going on. There's one thing that we have going on possibly before Jersey, but that would be overseas. But I really rather not just throw it out there. I know I'm being a tease or a douchebag here, but I mean, it's kind of like, if it doesn't happen, it's like, oh,
Right. Yeah. You gotta see how things develop.
Right. Yeah. You see the headline.
So, I mean, there are possibilities. So
yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. They're saying you don't want a headline. Bobby Blitz lied about their upcoming performance or something. So yeah, we'll that's cool.
Just be hopeful.
Cancel.
But yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'll say hopefully we see you guys back here on the West Coast again in 2022 at some point. Well, yeah, I got more. Yeah, I got more. I guess. Well, you talked about. I'll go back to the old days of Jersey. I mean, you talked about Rock and Roll Heaven. What were some other places that really helped you grow? Like, was vintage vinyl a big deal? I mean, we all hung out there. We all bought all our records there. But vintage vinyl. Were there other places in Jersey outside of the clubs that were a big part of Overkill and thrash and music coming up? The Watchung Market, for example. I used to go there.
Vintage vinyl used to carry our stuff all the time. We always would do in-stores there. I mean, even in the early days, we got in-stores there. Hang around there when we had our demos in there. We did a lot of our I suppose, I mean, Dee Dee and Rat are from, they're up by, off of Route 78 by Summit. So what county is that? Is that Hudson? That's not Hudson, is it?
I don't think so.
Essex?
Essex.
Yeah, I say Essex and Hudson all the time, don't I? Yeah, it's not Hudson, because Hudson is up by Bayonne, Jersey City, etc. Vintage was good for us. A big part of it for us, or a big part of support, was the Old Bridge guys, because they had much further reaching hands than people realized. They weren't just metalheads. I mean, they had started a label called Tungsten Records. I think we did a show at a place called Club Benet with one of their tungsten bands called Blessed Death. I don't know if you remember Blessed Death, but that was they were on Tungsten Records, and they were an awesome band, awesome thrash band, and just kind of self-destructed and went away. But those guys had they had arms. They could get out places and make things happen. And I'll tell you, man, when Johnny C brought over Metallica, or I think Slayer came over to the East Coast, and he would immediately call, Rock and Ray and Metal Joe and say, hey, listen, you got to put up Metallica. They're like, yeah, no problem. and they'd make the band put on a show in the basement. Right? So they had Slayer one time. I remember they had Slayer out in a place called Farmingdale, New Jersey, out at this old farm that one of the guys owned. And they were putting on a show in the basement, but they wanted to do it right. So they brought in full PA. They brought in lights. I mean, it's only like an 8-foot basement ceiling. There's lights, PA, Slayer standing on the floor. There's not enough power. So the original Charlie, who was one of our first stage managers, an electrician, climbs a telephone pole and taps into a transformer to get the 240 down into the basement. The show went on.
That's a hell of a story. So is that Charlie? Is that who Charlie was named for him?
He called everyone Charlie, so that's where we got our Charlie from. He remembered people's names, but he would just refer to you as Charlie when he talked to you. What are you doing, Charlie? He'd be looking at me, and he'd look at somebody else and go, Charlie, could you get me that over there? Charlie!
That's hilarious. All right, Rich. Yeah, I got more. I mean, we got a little more time. Go ahead if you got something.
What venues are still around that you would recommend for people to look into that are still around in New Jersey that they could play? What are the good places to go to now to book shows?
Jeez, I mean the book shows. Well, I guess Starland. I mean,
Starland's still open, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of what's left. I mean, Starland was. I mean, that really was what replaced what you mentioned earlier, the Birch Hill, because that's really in the same area. That's kind of in that Old Bridge area. It's central area, Middlesex County.
Mm-hmm.
How many other venues that did this stuff that are open? I can't remember another one.
Or just just rock clubs that are still around that could, play rock and roll and heavy metal bands and things.
Geez, up by me, there's hardly anything. I go to a place called the Stanhope House every now and then. I mean, occasionally they have hardcore bands over there and some, stranger stuff. I saw a Pale Horse named Death. I saw AF over there, which was fun. It's probably a little different for me because I just don't go out like I used to. I mean, when I'm out in Jersey, it's either to the shore, it's visiting. I mean, I do the RAD benefit with Turbo. I think you guys know Turbo, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Rock Against Dystrophy thing.
Yeah.
And we've done that down in the High Line or the headline down in Neptune. And,
yeah, I think there's a few places maybe still down the shore area that are around.
Oh, went robotic again.
Yeah, he froze again.
Froze again. Unless that was some kind of a vocal effect. But yeah, I mean, I was for when you get back, Bobby, or for you guys. I mean, yeah, that is a good question, Rich, because you and I remember lots of places from the old days. There's so many.
There was Obsessions and Mothers and Club and A, like you said. But especially over the past year, we don't know how things have changed either. If things have shut down a couple places.
Sure. Well, yeah, and plus a lot of those places just came and went, just
right.
As a sign of the times. Yeah, we lost them, but we'll give them a couple more minutes to get back. Yeah.
See if the signs back in.
Yeah.
We're getting near the end anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly. We won't tie them up too much longer anyway. But what was the place? I know if you're not from Jersey, you probably won't remember this place. What was the place? Was it the Cricket Club in Irvington? Was it like a tiny hole in the wall?
Tiny place there. There was like I said, Mothers, Club and A. JJ Rockers was a place. You remember that?
I do remember.
JJ Rockers.
I want to say I saw a show there, but I don't know if I did. I don't know if I did.
I can't remember all the names. Birch Hill, I remember a lot.
Yeah, Birch Hill. I bring this up every time we talk about this, but Studio One was, of course.
We have to do some homework and write some names down so we don't forget.
Yeah. Well, there's just. I mean, there were all the places in Sayreville. There was the Stone Pony, of course. And
Stone Pony, yes, Stone Pony's still around. Yes,
that is still around. I know the Fast Lane closed before.
There's a new place actually down by the Stone Pony that I saw. An old church in Doro a couple of years ago, and that was a good place. That was like a half of a restaurant type of a thing, or think it was a bowling alley or something, and the other half they had a stage. So it was blocked, it wasn't like a line, but one side you could do one thing and the other side you could see the band. It was really a cool setup. Hopefully that's still around.
All right. And did you hear anything from Bobby? Is he trying to reconnect, or is, like, I don't know, maybe he lost
No,
maybe lost Wi-Fi or something. But yeah, I mean, and I know that you also, I know you and I have talked about this. I know that you've seen a bunch of shows in the Philly area, which is a little bit of a haul from Central Jersey. But,
Yeah,
a
little south.
Yeah. But
not
I did
bad, not too bad.
occasionally. I occasionally went down and saw stuff, in the Philly area. I saw some one or two shows at the Spectrum, and even some stuff in New Hope. New Hope's not much of a metal town, and then of course the city. I mean, the city was. Like, I definitely saw Overkill in the city. I saw lots of shows at Roseland and.
Is he trying to get back in?
No, I don't see him. He's not in the lobby. I don't see him. I'll let him in as soon as I see him.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you out there watching, like I said, we probably only got a couple minutes left. But if you have any questions for Blitz, when he rejoins, I mean, he kind of went, his voice went robotic and he dropped off. So, some kind of technical difficulty. Either that or he was just tired of talking to us, and he said, I'm going to make a way to get out of here. No, I'm kidding, of course. But yeah, I mean, this has been great. Blitz of course is a Jersey legend. Last time we had him on.
Long-time fans of Overkill, so it's great to have him on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, last time we had him on was last year, and I was a total fanboy, so I was trying to reel it in this time. But Overkill was absolutely my favorite band in the world for many years, and it's still, like, if I were putting together the big four, Overkill would be in there somehow. I don't know who would get bumped. I'm not gonna talk crap about any of the ones that are in the official big four, but Overkill is part of my big four, absolutely.
Maxwell's, is that another place?
Yeah, Maxwell. I remember.
Look up some names. Maxwell's.
Troy Yates. I don't know.
Debonair is still open. Yes, hopefully Debonair is still open. That's the other place. That's one of the newer places. Dingbats is still around.
That's right. Where was the Frost Coalition? Where they do their thing? I remember they did their thing during lockdown. There wasn't a show, but they did.
That was I forgot the name of that place. That was a rehearsal studio.
I thought it was actually. Oh, okay.
No, it was a recording studio. And then the Crossroads.
But regardless, I like what some of our guests have said. I wanted to get to ask this question of Blitz, and I'll try. If we get him back, I'll ask him. But about what makes Jersey. I mean, what makes it the Jersey? Even though I'm not from Jersey anymore, and some people say they hear it in my voice, but what makes the Jersey music scene? Like what? Because it's not. I mean. Everyone thinks like, oh, Jersey music, you mean Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen. And there's no denying Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen. But I mean, what else makes Jersey music? I mean, there's,
right.
And I think, Overkill, Smithereens, outside of metal. I mean, I think, these are.
It's got variety. There's a lot of variety too that comes out of it also.
And I really like what Amy Sharetto said, that, there's a lot of attitude because it's, New Jersey is in between Philly and New York. So there's a lot of there's a lot of attitude, like of
there's a couple theaters open too. There's there's a theater in Montclair that does shows right now, and another one in Newark, Jersey. I'm looking up the name right now. But there's still some things that are open.
That's cool. Yeah, and obviously things are, assuming that this thing doesn't take a nasty turn. I mean, we're getting back to it. Theaters are reopening and tours are being booked. There's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope that we're going to get back to this stuff. And PNC Art Center, right? That's still
Art Center. Yeah. I'm trying to find the other name of the place. The aside from that other theater that I've been to, which is nice. The Bergen Pack in Englewood. That's a good one too.
Okay. Yeah, a bunch of these I've not been to.
That's still around. Yep. Nice theater.
Now, and again, another thing I was going to bring up. You were at the Shaylin Press show, right? You were at that benefit show. I was there. That Overkill did. It was like right around. It was right when Years of Decay was the album that came out. So they played a big show. I think it was like in a big giant field. At like community college. I don't even remember, but I don't know. Well, I'm thinking it's looking like we're probably not
yeah.
going to. I mean, I don't know if you've heard from Blitz, but I'll say, it was an honor having you on. I mean, you're not here.
Yeah,
It was an
well, I
honor
want to
having
get
Blitz on.
when the album comes out, closer to that or something.
Yeah, hopefully we can get him back. Thank you guys for watching. Technical difficulties. Sometimes that's how we end, so we're not ending on a big note like we usually do. But yeah, it's cool, Rich. We have a couple more. I will say to you and to the world, I don't know how many more of these Jersey shows we're going to do. This has been great. I know we have a couple more people who want to talk about this subject, so there'll be at least one more, maybe only one more. I don't know, but I think it's a good topic because Jersey is a big part of music. I mean, it's had a huge part. I mean, I want to go back. I mean, Frank Sinatra is from Jersey. I mean, you've got Jersey it should be more on the map than it is for music. Even though I don't live there anymore, it's important. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to say thanks again to Blitz for joining us. Thank you, Rich, for
Thanks, everybody.
good talking. And yeah, we got. I don't know. We got lined up for next week, but we'll probably be back. We'll be back.
Okay.
So, all right. Have a good night, everyone. We're gonna sign off. Actually, I'm not going to sign off because I'm going to get. Thank you, Troy Yates. Now I'm going to sign off. Good night.